Good evening, Indiana. Welcome to the HoosLeft Podcast, a show about Indiana politics, history, and culture from an unapologetically leftist perspective. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers, and I'm broadcasting from Bloomington. Tonight, fresh off an appearance in the first of Progressive Indiana Network's series of virtual Democratic primary debates, my guest is Chloe Andis, candidate for State Senate in District 15, which is located entirely within Allen County. That is Fort Wayne, for those not familiar. Borrowing heavily from her website, born in Louisiana and raised in Allen County, Chloe has spent her life in service, from military intelligence that shaped national defense to strategic problem solving that guided executive decision making in the public and private sectors. She served in the Air Force as a Chinese translator, managing U.S. naval intelligence missions from Pearl Harbor, where every ship or sub sailing the Pacific was tracked by her team. For nearly 6 years, the Air Force built her leadership foundation while instilling the values of a life of service that she carries to this day. After leaving the Air Force, Chloe moved to Maryland to lead the Army's counterintelligence mission and to protect American bases and soldiers. When the pandemic hit, she oversaw the nation's COVID threat analysis, work that went to the director of the NSA, the Secretary of Defense, and the President. Taking her talents to the private sector, she helped create an aerospace manufacturing company before transitioning into defense consulting. Chloe has built things from scratch, led people through hell, and won against all odds. And after 15 years away, she's back home in Fort Wayne, running to put people over profit by lowering costs, raising wages, and protecting our freedoms, just as she always has. Tonight, we'll talk about Chloe's long road home, what inspired her to run for office, and the issues most affecting her community. We'll talk about the MAGA Christian nationalist who currently occupies this seat and the challenges of taking on someone who is openly hostile to your very existence. But before we get there, you know the routine. This is an independent media project. We don't paywall content. We don't have advertisers. We certainly don't have billionaire benefactors. Only individuals like you keep this thing going. And it is a foundational principle of Who's Left and the Progressive Indiana Network that we refuse to hide important information behind paywalls in the middle of a political crisis, even if that's not in our financial best interest. So please, if you find value in this work, go to progressiveindiana.net and subscribe at the paid level. It's only $5 a month or $50 a year to help us build the infrastructure that will pop the right-wing media bubble in this state. And if a paid subscription isn't for you at this time, that's okay. You can still help out by liking and sharing on social media, commenting, leaving reviews, that's a big one, providing feedback, forwarding our articles and episodes to your people. You get us when you can. Mostly, we just want you here in this community of Hoosiers dedicated to making this state and its government work for all of us, not just the elite few. Please join us. You can follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads at whosleft.us and on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Who's Left. Progressive Indiana Network's handle is the full spelled out name on most sites, but on Blue Sky and TikTok, it's PIN Indiana. Please help us out with a follow wherever you're at. Tell the others. Let's build a radically democratic Indiana together now. Let's get to it and welcome our guest, Chloe Andis, to the show tonight. Chloe, welcome.
Woo! So excited to be here, Scott. Thank you.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Top of the evening to you.
Cheers.
Sluncha. Chloe's got the Irish whiskey. I've got the Irish stout. So hey, how'd the debate go the other day? How do you think you did?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for that opportunity. Like, that is the first time that I've ever debated, and so just to have a rep in the belt, incredible experience. So thank you for putting that on. It went okay. I have a lot to learn. I need to hone my answers, practice brevity. And yeah, to me, it's about reps and practice and making sure that I'm saying exactly what I want to say.
In the words of the great Allen Iverson, we're talking about practice. But hey, want to introduce yourself to the good folks. I like to start our every show with a little segment I call the easy dubs, the easy W's of journalism, the who, what, when, where. Obviously, this is an election year. That is the when. The what is the election. Hey, we've got a primary coming up May 5th. Let's talk about the more interesting ones. Who are you? Where are you from? Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your district.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Chloe. Right now at this point in my life, I am a veteran. I'm a union worker, and I'm a trans woman living in Indiana. Listen, Indiana has always been my home. And I know that others may try and frame me as this person that left and then came back for specific things. But truthfully, like even when I was gone, be it for the Air Force or higher education or pursuing my career, I always considered myself a Hoosier. I found that a point of pride, in the jokes of coming from the cornfields out in Northwest Allen. That's like, it's built up now, don't get me wrong, but that is who I am. I grew up here. You mentioned it at the very beginning that I wasn't born here. I was born in Louisiana. My dad was Air Force, and I was born on Barksdale Air Force Base back in '93. And I say that because I was literally born into this world under the pretext of service. And so I think, I never really had a chance, so to speak. Yeah, my dad moved up here, took a job at Lincoln, as many do in Fort Wayne. Grew up here, went to Carroll, attended the Anthis Career Center downtown in my senior year. Ended up getting my EMT certification. Did my clinicals in the back of trial ambulances, and then as well as in the Parkview Emergency Center at Randalia. In high school, I played football and wrestled at the Coliseum for semi-state here locally. Made friends, like I said, grew up, went to Ivy Tech for a semester, and that didn't work out. Don't get me wrong, but like Indiana has always been my home, and I think that it shaped me into the person that has come back now. So I mentioned obviously, a semester at Ivy Tech didn't go my way, and then I did a recalculation and inventory of my life and of what I actually want to do in this world. And I chose to enlist into the Air Force, very similar to my dad, followed generally in his footsteps. Yeah, went through that process literally at the office by Glenbrook that's still there, reconnected with a couple recruiters since. Yeah, enlisted as a Chinese linguist, and the rest is kind of history. That pulled me out of Indiana and slowly got me to see the world. Even slower, got me to ask some insightful questions about myself, about my place, about what humanity means, about what our trajectory is in this life, and as we float on this rock in solidarity, whether we think we do or not. Yeah, more specifically, I enlisted, did basic down in Texas for 2 months, spent a year and a half out at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, learning the language. Very amazing experience to be able to set up in a program like that, learn language, learn culture, learn food, learn context, learn history. And my goodness, did they throw you into the fire? So you start the course on a Wednesday, right? And by the following Monday of the next week, you are only allowed to speak the target language. And so it very much is sink or swim, trial by fire. Did that for a year and a half, came back to Texas to learn the intelligence side of the job. It's like, okay, you've learned the language, now how do you use it? Spent a couple months there, and then from 2014 to late 2014 to mid 2018, spent the bulk of my enlistment out in Hawaii, from Pearl Harbor to a couple different sites that exist out there, embedded primarily in the National Security Agency detachment on Hawaii, on Oahu. I mentioned it, and you spoke about it in my bio. I filled an NSA billet as an airman, working primarily for naval intelligence. So really interesting cross-section there, but that is exactly what we did. So any signals, any communications, any geolocations that came out of the Pacific for our adversaries that operate in that area of responsibility. That was essentially my team and I's responsibility, was to maintain that Blue Force jurisdiction as we consider the U.S.'s naval power. Yeah, what can I say? You know, I learned leadership. I learned what the military looks like in grand scale, not just from our own vantage point, but I think, you know, having gone through that course and learning to adopt the perspectives of other cultures, like I was able to view what we were doing as a military, as an intelligence agency, and compare that to the context of what we're operating in and how that might look outside of us. Ultimately decided to get out in 2018. Contract was up and I didn't re-up it. I did follow on and continue in the reserves, came back to Indiana briefly, and then went further out east to Maryland. Got my undergrad at University of Maryland in East Asian Studies. Truth be told, it was the fastest path to a bachelor's, and I knew that I wanted to capitalize on a graduate program, and that was the strategy with that. And then also, yes, I became a defense contractor and worked for the Army counterintelligence at the 902nd Military Intelligence Garrison on Fort Meade, Maryland. What that unit does is basically provide counterintelligence support to your all extending Army assets, be that domestic or international, and then also do a lot of the back-end analysis for your human agents, your spies, so to speak, if you want to get that Hollywood with it. So yeah, we did a lot of that back-end work. As mentioned, given that I was a Chinese translator, had a lot of experience in different methods of intelligence because of my time at the NSA, rather than just counter intel and human. Our team was given oversight of what we saw during COVID. That continued on until the end of my tenure there, working counter intel, and that was about mid-21. Decided I wanted to pivot away from defense, from government work, and see what the private sector had to offer. And as mentioned, I wanted to get a graduate degree, capitalize on that. Chose business to be pretty agnostic towards the world, and then wanted to just explore a type of people that I hadn't been around, and New York capitalist was it. So went up to New York, spent 2 years at NYU getting my MBA. Amazing experience to be in that almost grad school diaspora in a place like New York City. As mentioned, worked in a couple of different startups, eventually became an aerospace and defense consultant. I just can't get away from military and government defense work. And then, ultimately, I hated it. I hated the work. I hated the person that I felt I was becoming. It was contradictory to the lessons that I had learned up to that point. And I left. I didn't want to do it anymore. And I chose to come home, reconnect with certain specific people that I had met before, whether you want to call them family, friends, or blood relatives or not. Found my home here. And given everything that I had gone through up through that point, learned that not only did I not have the power to make the change in the positions that I had held and the titles that I had had in my previous segments of my career, I think we can all objectively say that the direction that this country is going is not in a positive one, is not in a healthy one for a majority of Americans. And so it was a simple calculation. Hand me an abacus and I can point to you why I chose to run for office. It's it's that desire to serve, my want to serve the people that built me in Allen County, in my home of Fort Wayne, but then also with the understanding that it does take a level of power, that it takes momentum of a voting base behind you to represent people, to carry that responsibility, seems to be the theme of the night, into a medium like the General Assembly, like the State House, that can actually affect change positively for Hoosiers. That is why I'm here. That is why I came back with the understanding of everything that I went through to get to this point. That's who I am.
That is quite the route. You know, you've seen a lot. You've been a lot of places. You've learned a lot of things, and I'm sure I would love to pick your brain about just everything going on in the state of the world, with military, with war, with everything in Iran. But that is not for tonight. You know, I want to talk about you and this race for Senate and your district and the people in your community and what matters to them. And you know, I'm sure those things intersect a lot, actually. But let's talk about the 15th there for a little bit. The fighting 15th. You know, Indiana's gerrymandered districts are often very large and very rural, especially on the Senate side. They're big and spread out in many cases. Not 15. 15 is right there, completely located within Allen County, in the Fort Wayne area there. Can you tell us a little bit about the 15th, sort of relative to the other districts in the area? I know there are several state Senate districts that touch the Fort Wayne area, but 15 seems to be the most compact.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I need to double check with the map, but it may be the most compact state Senate district in Indiana. Don't quote me on that. I'll have to double check. It is essentially northwest Allen County down to about the midway point, if you cut Fort Wayne horizontally. And so we're looking at basically the north half of Fort Wayne and then this little like tail end that encaptures Huntertown towards the top. And so, yeah, it was gerrymandered this way after the last census by cutting off basically the tail end that fed into more diverse areas down south of, in the south and southeast districts of Fort Wayne. It's obviously done on purpose. And so what we have is a relatively homogeneous population of people included in District 15 based on the census that was done in 2020. And I say that because it's 2026, 6 years have happened. We've had, categorical changes in the world and our perception from COVID, from dysfunctional elections to localized subsidies and attractions to bring people in out of state, to the dynamic of movement of Americans across different states nationally. And I say that because the population of District 15 has changed since the census. It is more diverse in this area. You have more of a wide range of people that I think is misunderstood on the incumbent side because she's never here. So I look at District 15 and I see my home, but I also see the reflection of myself. You know, as mentioned, I'm a union worker. I work down at BAE Systems near the airport, basically building engine controls. And so that's exactly who lives here. Are working class people that are getting kicked in the teeth, be it from rising costs across the board, We can thank the Google data center down southeast for that in terms of utility bills. But yeah, you have that. You have low wages. We have a state minimum wage that hasn't been changed since 2009. Regardless of the people that I have talked to within District 15, whether they've been a lifelong voting Republican because that's what you do in Indiana, versus the progressive leftists that you talk to on the PFW campus up here that sees the world in a heightened, violent light because of the context in which they live in, all of them realize that this incumbency of this nation down to this state, down to our city council, cannot continue because it's not working for the people.
It sounds like the way the district is split, the way it's gerrymandered, very much mirrors what they were talking about doing with the congressional districts back in December, and the way they were talking about carving Indianapolis, and the way that they drew those lines was like right down the street in the predominantly black neighborhood, and so you would take that small diverse community and dilute it with a large rural swath. And it sounds like at least in 2021, when they were redrawing your district, they were sort of thinking along those lines, and well, then then life happens and sort of catches up to them. But even within the district, it sounds like there is this diversity. You've got folks, as are many Hoosiers right now, that are struggling. You also have folks that Fort Wayne, I don't think a lot of people knows this, big defense industry town. Not just BAE. There's other manufacturers there in that space as well. I'm sure that industry is probably doing great right about now. They can't keep up. And so you have some people who are probably doing okay. You say, like, you're a union worker, you've got probably good protections. Other folks, not as much. Our state legislators have not made it easy for folks to unionize, to become union workers, to enjoy those sort of protections that you have. And that goes back, boy, a couple decades now here in Indiana with, they call it right to work. It's more like right to work for less. But why the electoral route? Like, why, I can tell that you've got this commitment to service, be it in the military, serving your country, be it serving your community, that you feel called to help the people around you. Why electoral politics, especially in Indiana, where the deck is stacked against you, be it through gerrymandering, be it through fundraising, be it just the infrastructure that Republicans have compared to the Democrats? Why electoral politics versus organizing in the community in some other fashion? What was it that called you to run for office as your mode of service?
Yeah, listen, we love an underdog, and I take that mentality seriously. You bring up context that must be considered when we look at Indiana in terms of electoral politics. My camera's bugging out. So
both of us tonight, right? Like, I've got this aura going around me, and you've got like the Barbara Walters soft focus lens going on.
I mean, it's cute, but here, let me reset it real quick.
Yeah, you're good. It's St. Patrick's Day. We've got the just one beam of the rainbow coming in directly over my head right now. And pot of gold. Let's see. We got Chloe back here. Yeah, a little sharper there. All right. So we were talking about your why and why you chose the electoral path.
Yeah, I've been part of the systems. I am the military, and that line of service is ingrained to me. And I remember being on the floor at the office floor at the NSA in Hawaii, and I asked my supervisor, is there ever going to come a time in the future where people look back on what we did here and decide what we did was wrong? And I think that was the crack in thinking about what exactly were the actions that I was taking and how did that affect the world? How does espionage and really the extensions of the military industrial complex affect the world? How does it affect us? How does it affect those we call our adversaries, which most of the time are just people, right? People signing up to serve for education benefits or to provide for their family. We're all just people. And so, okay, continue that. You know, I leave the military for my own reasons and then end up in defense consulting. Really cool gig, get to apply some different things, think about counterintelligence as this like soft spy fantasy kind of thing, but still like very analytical and protective of our national security. And I like that. I liked it until I took over COVID as the lead analyst for that entire project, we'll call it. And to distill a long-winded conversation down, I understood that what was being reported publicly, be it from the political echelons at power or our lovely national media, was not reflective of what I was seeing. We as a country, hyper-politicized a catastrophic event that killed millions of people worldwide. And regardless of how damn hard I fought on the back end to make those changes so that we would actually give the American people, the world, the right information on how to handle something like this, it didn't matter. And it fell short because of politics, because politics wasn't working for the people. Could I have gotten over that if it was a one-shot event? Yeah, probably. Follow that up with the Black Lives Matter movement. And again, now having this lesson of, okay, the things that I am doing are not equally reflected in the world around me. Again, Fort Meade is just south of Baltimore, about 30 miles north of DC. And I was actually living in DC at the time. And so I'm looking at the real world. I'm literally, you can find them on my personal Facebook. I have live stream videos of walking around during DC during the protests. And what I saw was, again, very different than the repeated clips, repeated ad nauseum on Fox News, on of the mouthpieces of that administration. And again, different than what I'm seeing internally working domestic counterintel. Okay, so we cracked. We've got a couple of lines through our teacup, so to speak. And then January 6th happens, the insurrection that MAGA loves to not call an insurrection. When you bring the gallows out from Mike Pence, I'm sorry that it only goes one way.
I was willing to hear him out on the Mike Pence thing as a Hoosier.
You know,
I kid.
Me again, and we'll talk. Yeah, no, I just couldn't be part of that system that was effectively misrepresenting factual events for its own political purposes. That's wrong. Like, regardless of anything else, that is wrong. That is wrong.
Well, and yeah, as someone who, spent much of their adult life, trying to defend the country from, all threats, foreign and domestic or whatever, and, it must be a
and
real
the
shock to the
Gnostic.
system. Yeah, right. Must be a real shock to the system where like the biggest threat is coming from inside the house, and that was his first administration. It's only gotten worse this time around.
Yeah, the rails are off. There's no pretext. Like what would have been a smoking gun last time is just non-functional, right? Like that is the reality in which we live, and that has extended again all the way from the White House to the General Assembly here in Indianapolis. And I think that even as we see the local political game being played out here in District 15, it is a contest to see which incumbent or primary challenger can get the de facto grace of God via a tweeted endorsement, right? That is the race that we see playing out in District 15.
Yeah.
And that is going to have to be something that people live with if we don't vote, if people don't step up and run as candidates, if we let ourselves feel this apathy to the system at large. And so I think that's the other piece of this, and why you ask me why, when you ask me why, is I went through a period of apathy. I went through this system is busted, it is broken, it's never going to work for the people. It didn't work for me, and I was literally embedded in it. So how could it? And so I think there's merit to parts of that in understanding the system, but I think it falls short in wiping up your mascara, girl, put your heels back on and get out there. Like it takes that knowledge to understand what is going on. But if we do nothing, then they win. And I couldn't just be a bystander to this, knowing everything that I know, having gone through everything I've gone through, having come home and reconnected with the people that I love. There was no other way not to do this. It takes power to make changes. If I have learned anything, it's that, alongside all of the lessons that I learned throughout my career. And so an elected office made the most sense given the way that I see the world.
And let's talk about what kind of change you can affect in the General Assembly. Like, for all of the oxygen that Trump and his administration and his extremism kind of suck out of the room, the things that matter to folks in their day-to-day lives, those decisions are often made at the State House, sort of behind closed doors, or even, hey, the door's open, but no one's watching, right? There's just not enough attention on it. The local media is consolidated and stretched thin, and state politics isn't always sexy. So what are the things that you hope to pursue in the State House should you win here in the primary and then go on to win in November? What are the folks that you're talking to in your community telling you needs to change?
Yeah, I made this comment in the debate from a few days ago, was that I may be trans, but I still have to pay my rent. First things first, it's our economy. It's the economic decisions that the State House has made that are hurting people. They're hurting Hoosiers. And so when I think broadly, we have to not only reel in costs, the astronomical increase of costs across the board, but we also have to raise our wages. And I think in doing so, we can attack this problem from two different angles. Secondarily, it's investing in our kids, investing in our children, in childcare and schools. We talk about it goes hand in hand with economics, in that we talk about wanting to make Indiana attractive to attract and retain talent, and we do this via tax subsidies rather than actually making Indiana a positive place to live. Imagine if we had fully funded childcare. You wouldn't have to compete for nurses and teachers to come here. And then thirdly, it's what actually makes America great in our rights, in our protected freedoms as people, as Hoosiers, as Americans, and getting back to freedom from restriction rather than freedom to restrict, which if I had to narrow down a Democratic and a Republican concept of policy, that's the difference. And so to dive deep into the first one, right, when we think about the economy, when I first came back to Indiana, I ended up rooming with one of my favorite people in the world, rooming with her and her daughter, and we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment over on State and Maple Crest, the Blackhawk Apartments, and we were paying over $1,000 a month for a 1-bedroom to split it between the three of us. Now, when I came back, I didn't have a job. I was on unemployment actually from DC. And so just trying to make ends meet between the three of us was terribly difficult. And I spent time living off of a blow-up mattress in her daughter's bedroom just to make it work for the three of us again. And I think that it's only gotten worse since then. Right? Like that's the reality from a year ago. And here we are almost a quarter of the way into 2026. And look at the price of gas. You know, our foreign policies have downstream effects to our corners where we pick up a monster before we go into our shift. And I think to separate them and pretend like those upper echelon decisions don't impact us is very wrong. And we've seen that from the economy across the board. As you know, our national economic trajectory pushes us in the direction of artificial intelligence and all the infrastructure necessary to create that. We have data centers popping up across the country. We have many popping up in Indiana, one right here in the southeast district of Fort Wayne. And what that has done, given the dynamic of I forget the bill number, but there's a bill that basically says that residents will front 80% of the costs from infrastructure developments to the electrical grid. And so as we strain our electrical generation infrastructure to support data centers, we're taxing people on an economic investment and development where all of that money only goes to the shareholders. It's contradictory in
paying to render yourself unemployed.
Paying to render yourself unemployed and to put yourself under surveillance. And that's a part that we don't talk about very often is, you know, Palantir's overarching hands in this pie, all the way down, again, the extension of national level decisions feeding into the flock cameras downtown. So it's so difficult, I think, in this day and age, given the amount of information that we consume, to distill what is impactful to me in my local area that I can actually have a hand in, rather than just pointing fingers at the president and the administration at large in the U.S. And things have just gotten so wildly out of control. But again, keeping the focus on costs, it's the same way. Again, and I mentioned, we have to attack it from two different angles. It's not enough to just lower costs. You have to raise wages and meet this in the middle. We have a minimum wage of $7.25 still. Again, hasn't changed since I was a sophomore in high school. Full disclosure, when the first job that I took after getting off of unemployment from DC, I ended up at Nothing Bundt Cakes, literally baking cakes. Paying that part-time role paid me $15 an hour. When your part-time minimum wage roles in a community are paying double the minimum wage, your minimum wage is irrelevant. If the market has pushed up what it must pay to attract the talent willing to take on that role, then our minimum wage is essentially useless. So it must come up. because the minimum wage, again, is meant to provide the floor. And I believe, I know the main criticism against raising the minimum wage is that it increases costs. But honey, look around you. Costs are increasing whether you make more money or not. So we might as well raise the floor, and in with the understanding that that rising tide raises all ships. So again, as we think about childcare and education, it is fiscally responsible to invest in our kids. We, the powers that be in Indiana, on down to local jurisdictions, do so much to provide tax abatements and subsidies to attract businesses to invest in Indiana. What if we actually, instead of providing tax abatements to big business and corporations, use that money to invest in our state, and then made Indiana actually a good place to live, from something like, I don't know, funded childcare that has an ROI of $7 to $12 for every dollar invested in it. Something that I don't know, a similar state like New Mexico has already done. We make Indiana attractive so that we don't have to sell ourselves short to bring people in. We don't have to sell ourselves short to retain the talent that exists here.
And so much there, Chloe, for all the Republican branding is that, hey, we're smart, we're the business people, and yet they're short-sighted and only looking at the next quarterly report, right? And instead of the long-term goal. And listen, the quarterly report's fine if you're in business, but if you're in government, you need to think beyond the next P&L statement, right? You need to think long term. You need to have a much longer horizon, and think about research and development and investing in your people, like you said. And the ROI is what, $7 to $12 for every dollar you spend. That's a good investment. That's good economics. You don't have to be an economist or have an MBA to understand that that's the right thing to do for the long-term health of the state, and to want people to stay here and to bring people in, and to staunch the brain drain that we're having. And then, well, that doesn't even mention the other ways that our legislators make our state an unpleasant place to live, with the attacks on folks' basic human rights, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. From Liz Brown's main investment in limiting reproductive rights for women and others, from the attacks that Todd Rokita is now pushing out towards trans people and their limitations on being able to have identification that matches their identity in the world. We have Micah Beckwith pushing manosphere talking points that infect the minds of our young boys and our young men. We have now Senate Bill 76 that is basically commanding local police jurisdictions to work with ICE and black bag our immigrant and diverse neighbors. Like, what? Like, think about this conversation.
You have quite a diverse immigrant community up there in Fort Wayne, don't you?
We do, yes. I'm fortunate enough to have met so many people, be it the large Latino community that we have here, the Burmese community that has been under fire as of this year, and then we have a thriving Black community that exists all throughout Fort Wayne. Not to mention other groups that I'm not even mentioning in this, but there is so much that makes up Fort Wayne, and it's the same thing as I relate it to the experiences that I've had in the past. Is like, it's the people. Everything is about, at the end of the day, the people, and everyone is just trying to do their damn best to feed their families, to get a good night's sleep, to have a little extra money to go on a vacation and enjoy the life that we have been so granted. And so to think about protected rights as something, as a political bargaining chip, it's un-American. Look, I'm trans. I'm just a person. I promise. I don't bite. When I started at BAE, it's the Midwestern American manufacturing, and not sure what I was gonna get. And don't get me wrong, my trainer today wore a Department of Government Efficiency with some a hat with the logo of like Trump and the Doge thing and Elon on it. And yet I also have a Protect the Doll sticker on my locker. Like, people know me, and I asked my trainer about what like my rep was, because I'm still like, I'm there. I've been there for 6 months, but still fairly new. People know that I'm trans, and people know that I'm easy to work with. And I think that's the lesson, right? Is that the power of visibility, the power of existing in these communities, when they're not homogenous, when there is friction, when you understand that 70% of people haven't or don't know that they have ever met a trans person, like, that moves things. And I think it's the same thing broadly for Indiana. When good people step up with life experiences different than yours, we all learn. We're all better for it. We have these conversations that we can grow from. The Indiana's first Veterans Caucus, as we think about protected rights and others that are losing them. Indiana's first Veterans Caucus was set up by Allen County just a couple months ago. Regardless of political side, there is no Republican Veterans Caucus in Indiana, which blows my mind. And in doing so, it gave veterans an outlet to communicate with one another. And I'm involved in a number of different caucuses up here, but that one attracts Republicans as well, when you think about military demographics. And so to have conversations that exist outside of our diaspora of liberal and leftist and democratic political endeavors, it's so healthy to have somebody across the table that doesn't think everything that you think, that there is friction, that there is different routes up the mountain that we both want to get to, so to speak. And I think that the conversations that we have had in that caucus specifically have helped me understand that, yes, we can be different, but we both understand what we're facing right now. And that's the framing, I think, is we have a fight that we need to fight collectively right now. And then in the future, when we have successfully fought this fight and won, we can gather for a beer and discuss tax policies and what is fiscally responsible versus socially acceptable at the bar. Like, we can get back to those homegrown discussions of the political levers that we can pull in our communities after we've faced what we're facing.
Well, okay, yeah. And you're right. It is good to have diversity of thought in our spaces and not be surrounded by a bunch of people who think the exact same way we do. But on the other hand, like, how do you deal with somebody like the incumbent in District 15 there who, like, denies your right to even exist as a trans woman, right? Or even within democratic spaces, like, how do you? I'm sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably folks on our side that are like, well, I like what she has to say, but is she electable? Will people vote for her? So I guess, address both of those things.
Sure. The night that I announced back in September, Liz took a few of the social media videos that I had posted leading up to my announcement to run for office, stitched them together, and basically, like, wrote this long block, but the title screen of that was like, "Meet Mr. Andis," and then rattled off like a bunch of transphobic bullshit. What I have seen, and I think this coincides with the visibility that I have at my work, with the conversations that I've had with Republicans and right-leaning moderates in different rooms, when we're focused on the issues, my identity is kind of irrelevant. And I think whether it's years or decades down the road, we will look back on this moment as the same period of friction that all minorities have gone through in this country. And that gives me hope that others have fought the same fight and won and pushed through it and normalized their existence, and we think nothing of it. Trans people will eventually be the same way. And I think it takes the realization of that work, of that vulnerability, of that visibility, of that mindset that I am acting as a representative for a group of people every time I'm in public. It's a lot to deal with for many people, and I think that's why you have a high number of trans people isolating. I refuse to do that. And so that's what I've seen from the response from, you know, my incumbent, from followers like her. I just had a person that followed me on Facebook and then left a comment that was like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were a man. I'm sorry, I can't give you my vote." So like, you're gonna have these people that are never going to agree with you, but you're also going to have a group of people that are like, "Well, wait, let's feel this out." And I think that it takes two to tango, and it takes me extending an olive branch to make that happen. Is that fair? Maybe not, but that's the reality. In terms of transphobia in our own circles, yeah, I've seen it. You know, I get misgendered somewhat frequently. I get there's been, you know, different moments of left-leaning people not understanding how to interact with me, and I think it's just so overblown. I'm just a person, I promise. And so I think it's just a level of understanding, and that this is work for other people as well. You know, I went through this. My camera's out of focus again. You want me to push through, or you want me to reset?
You look fine.
I think I went through this with my family, in that, you know, I had done so much of this work on the back end for 28 years. And then I present this to another party, and it's like, whoa, this is hot. It took me a bit to understand that and realize that like, I have so much momentum and so much understanding and so much insight and so much development that I went through to get to this point. But for others, you have to be gentle on allowing them to grasp it. And I think forcing via a boot on the neck that trans rights are, you know, indisputable. They are, but there's a better way to deliver that message that the other party can be receptive to, that I think we need to consider. And so, I'm fortunate enough, fortunate enough to only have a select few instances of transphobic behaviors from inside the house. But we push past it. And again, we understand that this is about the work. This is about more than us. This is about the people in Allen County, the people in Fort Wayne. For me, it's about the people in District 15. And I will set aside my own issues, my own personal issues that come at me, for the greater good.
Well, good stuff. And it really has come through tonight that you are, I think, a public servant at heart. And I think that's the identity that folks need to focus on, is that you have dedicated your whole life to serving your country and to serving others. And for the folks of 15, I think it would be a breath of fresh air to have somebody who is more focused on them than on their petty personal agendas and grievances. So if people in the Fort Wayne area and anywhere in the state want to help you out, want to learn more about your campaign, want to donate, want to volunteer, where can they go and learn more about you?
Yeah, everything is pretty easy. Chloe for Hoosiers. ChloeForHoosiers.com, my website. My handles on socials are all Chloe for Hoosiers. I think YouTube is Chloe #4 Hoosiers. We had to get creative with that one. I don't know who else ran Chloe for Hoosiers. Anyway, yeah, come meet me. You know, I'm free. I would put my number over this, but that's probably a bad idea. You can reach me.
You wouldn't be the first if you're feeling bold.
You know, OPSEC and all that. Hit me up in my email, Chloe@ChloeForHoosiers.com. I'll respond to you. We can chat. We can grab a coffee. We can get some whiskey. You know, whatever it takes. Truthfully, I'm just a person. So please, if you want to reach out and just learn more, if you want to talk to a trans person with, you know, no holds barred, anything goes. Just be respectful. If you want to volunteer, please come aboard. We have a team behind us, and we can always use the augmentation. So please come and join us. Let's flip this seat. Donations are always accepted. It's going to take money to push through this incumbency, and that is the evil set before us until we can change certain legislation at the federal level. But it takes all hands, and regardless of any of that, vote. Please, even if I'm not in your district, go vote for the Dem running in yours. I promise you, their ideas are going to benefit you more so than anybody else. So please use the power that you have in this country and vote.
Fantastic. Well, Chloe, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Stick around. I'm going to take you off the screen, do my little closing bit, but I'll see you on the other side to say goodbye after the closing credits. Chloe Andis, thank you so much for joining us here on the Who's Left podcast tonight.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you all.
All right. That was Chloe Andis once again running for state senate up there in the 15th district in Fort Wayne. Thanks to her for being with us here tonight. And hey, thank you guys for being with us as well. One last reminder to please consider supporting Who's Left and the wider Progressive Indiana Network with a paid subscription if you're able. Again, you don't have to. It is free to subscribe. We need free subscribers just as much as paid subscribers, so head on over to progressiveindiana.net and do just that. We could also really use a follow on social media at Progressive Indiana Network on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at the same handle. Over on Blue Sky and TikTok, the handle is PIN Indiana. You can find me on most of your social media sites at Who's Left. That's HOOSLEFT. Direct message me any place with feedback, tips, ideas, and concerns, or email me directly at scott@whosleft.us. Finally, please, again, forward the show to a friend and have them pass it on to. Let's keep building this project and a truly democratic state, one conversation at a time. Until the next one, this has been the Who's Left podcast. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.